Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Adapted Life podcast. This is Julie Hasselberger, and a lot has changed since the last time I uploaded a podcast. This would be, I'm going to call it season 3, episode 28. And basically, when I started this journey of podcasting about my adapted life, I was inspired because I have this beautiful son. His name is Daniel. And I was sharing my life journey with him, all of the things that we've gone through. Sadly, a lot has changed, and Daniel is no longer with us. So I wrote this podcast outline back on March 19th. And please, just going to preface this and say that I am still going through a lot of grief and difficulty with the loss of my son, but I felt this urging, I don't know, from the universe, from him, from God, I don't know, that somehow it's just not over yet for me. And there's something that I can still give back and share and connect while also healing. And already I have a lot of stories about just beautiful things people have done and the people that I've met since we lost Daniel. But I'm going to tell you sort of within this episode that what happened and kind of where I am now and where I don't know. Honestly, I don't know where I'm going, but I know that there is a draw in my heart to continue to reach out and encourage others and just be a part of this community, not only of special needs moms, but of people who have lost someone close to them. I am now in what I keep calling the after. So I'm just going to try to share my episode with you. And I'm also working on ways to kind of redesign the podcast and try to get it out there so more people can connect with me and that I can start having some interviews and talking to folks here. I actually have new equipment and I have a new audio interface and microphones. So I think I'm set up now that I could, figure it all out, right? So, yeah, episode 28. I call it the after. Um, a new season, a dark tunnel, a lonely place, a monsoon of tears, a red bird, a sunrise, a blanket, a box of tissues, a pile of cards, an empty room, the loss of a son, the weight of grief, one purple crocus, sickness, a broken heart, a hole in my soul. This, my friends, is a very difficult conversation that I'm going to have with you and with myself because everything changed on January 12th when we tragically and traumatically lost our son. I'm not exactly sure how to resume my dream of a podcast for the special needs community and for people who are caregivers, but somehow I feel this pull as if I know that the past 26 years has had so much meaning that's still yet to be uncovered. Since I last recorded, I became a grandmother. I am a nana, and I have a beautiful little grandson named Harrison. But less than a month after Harrison was born, we lost Daniel unexpectedly from a sudden illness. And to make it even worse, I actually wasn't physically here when he died. I was trying to get home on a plane somewhere over the Midwest when he passed away. My husband and I had been out in California visiting my daughter. We had arranged everything so that we could go and see them. He hadn't met our grandson yet, and she really wanted us to come together to be there to meet the baby. Um, yeah, so we had it all set up. But towards the end of our week in California, Daniel started running a fever, and he wasn't feeling that well. Um, he had had a seizure on Wednesday that week. We left on a Monday, and we had nurses around the clock, so they were consulting with me and I was FaceTiming, and my son Thomas was at home. And after he had the seizure on Wednesday and a little fever on Thursday, we felt that it wasn't anything that we hadn't seen before. So John and I decided, after going over all Daniel's vital signs and talking to his caregivers, that we would spend the last day and a half and then come home on our planned January 13th flight on Saturday as planned. However, on Friday morning, January 12th, I received a call from the nurse who had come in the morning. He was very concerned about Daniel's condition and he felt that he should be seen. So an ambulance was called and they took him to the hospital. And at that same time, John and I quickly packed up my suitcases and we drove to the airport to try to change my flight and find the soonest flight home on any airline that we could. He decided to stay behind and that way he could talk to the doctors at the hospital um, until I was able to get Wi-Fi and be able to call. I wasn't sure if I would be able to. I boarded a plane at LAX at 2 p.m., which would be 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. It was the soonest I could get home, nonstop to JFK, where my car was. I was talking to Thomas on FaceTime just before I got on the plane, and I realized at that moment that something was very wrong because they had to intubate him because he wasn't breathing correctly or well. Blood pressure was not coming up, it was very low. His breathing wasn't normal. Everything seemed to be really taking a turn for the worse, despite all of the measures they were taking to stabilize him. About 3 hours into the 6 hour flight, I was able to connect to Wi Fi. I was on JetBlue. And I was able to talk to John. He called me and he said that the doctors wanted authorization to do a spinal tap to see if there's something going on, that way. And he did tell me that Daniel was in very critical condition. The doctor wasn't sure if they were going to do the spinal tap, I guess because they weren't sure Daniel was strong enough to survive it. And then a few minutes later, about 8 p.m. Eastern time, a second call came and it was John again telling me that Daniel had passed away. He was sleeping and when they intubate you, of course you're sedated. And he basically just went his heart rate dropped and dropped and dropped, and then he was gone. So I was like crying and wailing on that flight. And I had nobody in the seat next to me or the seat on the window. So I was on the aisle. So I just sort of like wiggled myself into the middle of the seat and I just cried and cried. And nobody seemed to notice because it was a very turbulent flight. And, there weren't a lot of passengers around me. And so they had everybody seated, even we were running into a storm coming in. And so they had everybody seated and it was fine. I don't know how I got through the flight. I really don't. But somehow the numbing effect of the shock settled over me. I landed JFK, got my car, drove to meet my son Thomas, all the way to Danbury Hospital in Connecticut. The hospital had agreed to keep Daniel in the ICU until I could get there. It was about 1:15 a.m. when I finally arrived. It was cold, it was raining, it was windy. It was really a miserable night too, the storm, it was awful. Thomas and I went to where Daniel was in the ICU. We called Sarah and John on FaceTime, and the four of us said our goodbye to Daniel. And I had a good conversation with the ICU doctor, and I guess they determined that he had had an infection that had become septic, most likely. And from what I understand, once septic shock sets in, it is often fatal and it doesn't take very long. And yeah, they really didn't determine exactly where this infection was because we weren't sure. I mean, it could have been related to the seizure he had on Wednesday. Um, he could have had a UTI. There was bacteria found in his urine, in his blood. Um, we just don't know because he didn't look any different on Thursday than he did when he was normally running a little fever and didn't feel well, and it was just all so weird. Anyways, we had a wake. We had a memorial service the next day, and I do have a video on YouTube that I think it's called "The After." I don't really know what I titled it, but it's on my YouTube channel called Julie Hasselberger, and there's some little clips from the wake and some pictures. I don't really remember much of what happened during those early days. Um, so, my friends out there, I stepped over a threshold into a completely foreign condition, situation, world, reality, whatever. I am now a mother who has lost her child. And it was so traumatic and shocking that it's taken me, I don't know, what is this, 2.5 months? Today is 84, day 84, 84 days just to be able to get the nerve up to sit down and do what I'm doing right now. This is the first time I've recorded and talked, except for my YouTube channel where I just upload video. Um, so think of this reality. After I spent 26 years accepting and adapting to this beautiful life as a special needs mom, doing everything possible to adapt and keep Daniel's world in the best quality of life possible, developed relationships with nurses, doctors, therapists, etc., providing medical care interwoven with his daily life. I worked with our Department of Developmental Services, DDS, set up his self managed vocational day program, whereby not only could we bring resources to the house for Daniel, but I was also able to get paid for being the vocational person, you know, getting paid to do it and manage it all. It was a really great arrangement. And it took us a while to get it in place. And I talked about it a lot, but we had just bought a brand new wheelchair van for Daniel. It's sitting out my driveway, 2,000 miles on it, and all of all of it. And now my house is really quiet. It felt as if someone just pulled the plug on everything at once. The nurses were gone. The therapists were gone. The phone calls started from the companies that wanted to pick up their equipment, respiratory, feeding pump, etc. Daniel's social security account was frozen. I have to work that out. Everything just stopped, like quiet. Took me a while to finally get in his room and clean it up a little bit because there was still evidence from where he had woken up on January 12th, where he had left the house in a traumatic hurry and then he just never came home. So eventually I was able to go in there and it was, as you can imagine, I lost it because he was gone. His, okay. His, um, his warm, funny little smile would never greet me again in that room. See, it's all very painful. And snapshot to today. Today is oh gosh, April 5th. It has been 67, no, 84. I wrote this when it was 67. 84 days since that horrible January day. And I still don't know what to do with myself. Focusing is really hard. I've gained about 20 pounds. I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe just stress. I'm not exactly sure. So grief is my new tethered spirit. Grief, loss, pain, love. Um, I find myself feeling like I am still little shards of glass and dust and debris. Kinda like I was smashed into a zillion little bits. That's how I feel, and I'm all floating all over the place. There's pieces of me scattered, floating, 'cause I just don't know where my solid self is mentally. Um, Everything in my life was interwoven into Daniel's life, interwoven with his life. I was living life for the both of us, and that's what we do in this situation. So everything is just really bringing me pain. Anything that had his name on it, like everything, like from a simple appointment that shows up on my phone repeating all the time to reminder calls on the thing, and just everything. And lots of people did show up in the very beginning, and it was wonderful. We had a lot of support and care. We were prayed for, we were fed, we were held up, and um, it was a really really difficult time, but a lot of people were touched by Daniel and were involved in his life. So it was really beautiful to see people show up from the very beginning all the way through, supporting us and our family. And they say that the hardest part is after the funeral is over, and it was very hard. Actually, everybody just sort of goes poof, and it was it was really lonely during those times. I was really really lonely, and John was working from home, and eventually he went back to work with his focus, but I didn't have a work to go back to. Um, so I was just sitting with my thoughts and just trying to be surrounded by everything Daniel without Daniel. And yeah, it was my nightmare. So I did find connections that I hadn't had before, which were wonderful. I flew out to California right after the funeral, about a week later, with Thomas to visit my daughter and the baby. Just Thomas hadn't met his nephew yet, because Sarah flew out for the funeral and stuff, but she red-eyed it out and back because she was still breastfeeding, and it was really hard for her. And but she wanted to be here, so we made it happen. And then Thomas and I flew out just to escape and go visit Harrison. So Thomas met the baby, and I actually connected with a friend that I have been Facebook friends with for, I don't know, like 18 years. I don't know, a long time. And so it was very heartwarming to have lunch with her out there in California. She lives in California. And I met some other folks who have also lost their special needs loved one, like I did, from our immediate support group. And then from community, there were people I knew and people I met and people I'm still meeting, and people reaching out to me. It was just really cool, and I welcomed it because I just needed something to do that would fill my day and fill my heart and fill my mind and keep me going. Um, it was nice just to have people be there for me and show up for me. I am so grateful for that. That kind of support is what people need when they are at this level of grief. It's not really definable. It's just like, just be there. Don't expect them to call you for help. Like, that was one of the worst platitudes people said, is like, "Oh, let me know if you need any help." You know, you know where I am. Give me a call. Because when you're that far gone into your grief journey, like when you're that lost, the last thing you know is what you need. And the last thing you want is another thing to do, aka call me and let me know. So it's like they put the onus on you. That 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 people are like, "Do you need anything? What do you want? What do you need?" And support. I just need support. What do you mean? I don't know. I don't know. Google it, right? Google how to support someone. It's like, It's not like we had so much food. There was only me, John, and Thomas, and then eventually Thomas went back, but they people were so kind. We were so grateful. We had a meal train thing, but we had way too much food. Maybe that's where it started, right? With the weight gain and the sitting in the chair and the not moving and the just being lost. Anyhow, um, in the early days, I could just barely eat and shower, and I loved it when somebody would just come over and just want to talk, and it could be about Daniel, it could be about something totally different. It was great, and some of my best friends in the world just showed up and, like, camped out, and we just laughed and told stories and just made each other smile. That was the best. Um, Honestly, though, friends, I am still in this, and, uh, now I am pretty much spending my time alone, spending my time with John, listening to the sounds of my house. Sometimes I try to remember what it was like when Daniel was here, and there was this aliveness in our house, from his care. And I loved that. Like even the beeps and the cries out and the sounds, and I still hear them sometimes, and I think I'm losing my mind. I'm just trying to keep going. So I did sign up for a watercolor class that just finished on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. It was 5 weeks long. And I was just doing basic skills for painting with watercolors. Totally self-taught with art. I never did any art classes, and I thought, well, maybe that'll be a nice chance for me to put my mind on something I can focus on. And it was a really good thing. It was a lot of fun. It was really easy, but I learned some things and met some friends, and so that was good. It was a good class. I wish it didn't end, but I'll be looking out for some more art classes in the future. I think because I find it very cathartic and healing to just dig into painting water. Something about watercolors. I really don't understand it, but I've been reading a lot of books, a lot of books about grief, and then a lot of books about whatever, some novels. I read a lot more than I ever did. And it's kind of good for me too, because I think it just, again, fills some time with focusing on something. Um, John and I took a marriage course, and we're almost done with that. And it's not like we need to go to marriage course. And like we took the course through our church because we heard them talking about it one day when we were at church, and we were like, you know what, maybe we should take that class because a lot of people think it's really good. It's a Zoom class, and you meet once a week, and you have a little workbook, and you do exercises, and it was really good. It really helped us because we are both grieving, but we're grieving differently. And we are now here by ourselves, just my husband and I. Like our whole relationship status is kind of like different. We were always, my husband and I, taking care of Daniel, including him and working around things and trying, like our future included a special needs trust and just establishing what life was going to look like if something should happen to us for him, or what our life would look like in retirement with him. Like we never anticipated losing him. Like we just didn't go there. And it was so unexpected. So it was a little bit of a shock to our marriage too. So that's been really helpful because I need to figure it out, right? So anyhow, the days are now getting longer. We're in springtime. Sun feels nice. I'm having moments where I can think about things. I'm I'm doing a little bit more on my YouTube channel, my podcast, and the shop with the artwork that we sell, or I sell, that we were doing together. Now I've decided to keep it alive in Dale's memory. Um, I'm still working on all of the things that were interwoven with him. And it's not as hard as it was in the beginning of these 84 days to look at his beautiful picture and hear his beautiful smile in the videos and stuff, and hear his smile, hear his laughter, I mean. So I'm keeping the art sharp. open. I have captured so much uh, of Daniel's life, so many beautiful little moments and things, and so I'm grateful for my desire to record and write and just keep track of things. But grief is a completely different experience than anything I could have ever imagined. It's very strange. One minute I feel level, the next I have this crazy, crazy, like sadness, as if the universe has just cracked and it has flooded me with tears to the point where I'm drowning. I cry and I sob. And then I have sort of this like settling where it's like I'm calm now. And then I can laugh and John's making jokes and we're smiling and, texting with the kids and, putting love and attention into Sarah and Thomas and Tyler, her fiance, and what things are coming up. And, we support each other because we're all at different points in our journey of all of this. So my adapted life continues on. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I am listening to my intuition and listening to what I've been hearing. I've had a lot of encouragement and I've just been writing. I've been writing poetry. I've been writing and journaling, and a lot of it is like grief journaling. I have a lot of tools that I've been transitioning to help me cope psychologically, um, looking for miracles, being creative, just trying to self-care now more than I was because I gotta take care of myself. So this is my first episode of season 3, episode 28. I am now a member of the I Lost My Child Club, the Grief Club, the I sacrificed my life to take care of my disabled son for 26 years. And now he and that life that I was in have just abruptly stopped and disappeared forever. Club. I'm in that club. I thank you for listening. I hope you will let me continue to share the journey, to continue to inspire the community. And I can only say if you also have lost someone that I got my foot now right next to your foot and we're walking because that's that's where life has landed me. So I'm here for you too. Um, keep looking for those miracles and signs. Today we had an earthquake. I thought that was an interesting thing. You know, I was like sitting in my house. All of a sudden, everything started shaking. It's April 5th. So, yeah, there was a magnitude 4.8 that was in New Jersey somewhere. And it was felt all over the East Coast, the New England area. Like I felt it in Western Connecticut, and my son is in Boston and he felt it. And it was crazy because we don't get earthquakes out here that we can feel. I, I don't remember ever feeling one that shook for like 10 seconds. Like I was in my room and my dresser was shaking, my jewelry box was shaking. It was wild. And John and I were like, what happened? But yeah, so crazy day. Anyways, I know Daniel is always telling me, hey, Mom, see the light. Look for it. Look for the light. Can you feel it? And I don't know. I don't know, but I will be back again. And I thank you for being a part of the adapted life, for the first 2 seasons. And whenever I'm just on the verge of really getting my act together, it seems like something throws me off track. But this was probably the most traumatic and horrible thing that has ever happened. And I am missing him every day and every minute. So think of us, and I'm sending love and grace out to you as well. And I'll be back. So have a good afternoon or evening or wherever you are.